would be going straight into the newspaper headlines for today, and we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and quite a number of stories there. And one of them, the lead story in particular, is talking about Obasanjo to Clark. That's talking about Edwin Clark, I believe. The lead story says, Niger Delta can't claim oil ownership while in Nigeria. The story has the writers insists all resources belong to the country. Ex-President Wright, Professor Kari. And also you would see the pictorial there showing you homeless children queue to receive a morning meal from missionaries of charities in Kolkata, India. And then below that, electoral bill component, not good for Nigeria. That's according to the presidency. That's quite a view there that you may want to take a look, to see the details. You'd find that on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Masari insists on power shift to south. That's on page 6. And then man, wives, son, 3 others die in Niger boat mishap again. It's really sad. That axis, I think something needs to be done about, boat mishaps around that axis. FCTA to revoke titles of 435 abandoned buildings and 600 plots. Then, of course, at the top there, you'd see Lassa fever death toll hits 92. Controversy trails disruption of Zamfara PDP Congress. Also, Itunu, federal government family reject autopsy, demand justice for Ivory Coast. These are the major stories on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at other stories on the Punch newspaper. The lead story there, 2023. Electronic transmission of results doubtful. 301 local governments lack internet facilities. And the writers, only 473 local governments have internet access. Federal government plans additional 224 local governments by 2023. You'd also see experts say satellite technology can cover local governments without internet. INEC can use other platforms where internet is not available, says Olurode. And you see a pictorial there at the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library in Abeokuta, where young children are still celebrating Yuletide. You'd also see on page 8, Adeleke loyalists suspend new Osun PDP factional chairman. Ayade mourns as ex-Senate President Waya's widow dies in the UK. And on page 5 of the Punch newspaper, child visit. Ex-wife accuses Fani Kaidi of shunning court order. That's quite a controversy. If you'd like to get the details of that story, you can grab a copy of the Punch newspaper. And on page 4, Itunu Nidcom, father fault autopsy, lawyers plan ECOWAS suit. You'd also find man, 2 wives, son, others heading for christening drown in Niger. That's quite sad. And on page 20 of the Punch newspaper, Imo kicks as Okorocha's son-in-law tackles Ozodinma, false arrest. And right at the top on page 19, you'd see the story about Discus suffering load reduction as power generation sheds 571.5 megawatts. And on page 10, National Assembly sends appropriation bill to Buhari. President signs Friday. And you also see the story about federal government set to close 2020 marginal oil field bid round. And on page 28, you'd see 15,049 Nigerian nurses moved to UK in 5 years. That's according to a report. So these are some of the major stories on the Punch newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at The Guardian this morning. There, the lead story talks about COVID-19. Yes, prepare for another pandemic. COVID-19 won't be the last. That's according to United Nations. And then the writers there, massive new bird flu outbreak could be 2022's deadly pandemic. And then you see also 10 million Nigerians get first dose as WHO laments missing global 40% vaccination target. And then the next one there says China, Germany impose new lockdowns to curb Omicron. And then the pictorial there shows you abandoned refuse bin at Balogun area of Idumota, Lagos yesterday. At the bottom, you would find you ought to be statesman, not tribesman, Obasanjo tells Clark. And then the next one, concerns mount over closure of streets in Lagos. Beware, Lagos airport's car park unsafe for travelers and vehicles. You'd want to take a look at the details of that story. How vaccine cards are procured without jabs. So that's a special report there by The Guardian. You may want to take a look at the racketeering industry.
Racketeering
you know,
industry.
in Nigeria, specifically as it regards, accessing certificates for COVID-19 jobs. Nigerians, I don't know. Well, the story at the very top there, you'd see Bielsa spill, leak impossible without interference. That's according to experts there. These are the stories that are on the front page of The Guardian today. Okay,
let's take one more before we do the review of some of these stories. Let's take a look at some of the stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. They are also leading with a story about oil belongs to Nigeria, not Niger Delta, says Obasanjo. And the writers there, ex-president tackles Clark. I bear no grudge against region. You'd also see outages in Nigeria. Others push oil price to $80 per barrel. And right at the top on page 27, ex-president Jami guilty in murder of 9 Nigerians. That's quite tragic. If you want to get details of that story, grab a copy of the Nation newspaper. You'd also see on page 4, COVID-19, World Health Organization can't meet 40% global vaccination target. Nwosu, I was accused of supplying arms to militants. Palace, 2 vehicles torched after Osun Carnival. And you also see a story about Bielsa's spill. Abrupt wellhead leak impossible without interference, experts insist. So these are some of the stories on the Nation this morning.
All right. So let's get perspectives on this. Okay. So we'll just take a little break, and then when we come back, you get to meet our guest, and then we'll have perspectives on the stories today.
The board and management of Media Trust Limited invites the general public to its annual Daily Trust Dialogue, themed 2023, The Politics, Economy and Insecurity. Date, 20th January 2022. Location, NAF Conference Center and Suites, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. prompt. Chairman of the occasion, former Head of State, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, GCFR. Guest Speaker, Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. Guest Speaker, Governor of Ebonyi State, Engineer David Umahi. Guest Speaker, former Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mrs. Ifueko Omoigui Okauru. Moderator, Executive Director, Daria Media Nigeria Limited, Kadaria Ahmed. The event will be transmitted live on Trust TV, and all participants must observe COVID-19 protocols and wear their face masks.
Well, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Now, we'll be taking perspectives on the stories that made the headlines. And we have in the studio publisher, Summit Post News, Nelson Omonu Yakubu, to give us perspectives. Welcome again to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's begin with a look at some of the stories we saw on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The first one that, got my attention is the, I don't know whether to call it response of the presidency now about the components of the electoral bill not good for Nigeria, according to the presidency. And I'm wondering how that is really. If you know the components of the electoral bill, talks about, how Nigeria's democracy can be further strengthened. Right. Talking about electronic transmission of results, independent candidature, whether the controversy, of course, is there about direct or indirect primaries. But I mean, whether we like it or not, the essence of amendment is to
improve the system.
Improve systems. So I'm surprised that I'm seeing this really.
Oh, thank you. The controversy surrounding the electoral bill is yet to be over, because the presidency has not come out with categorical statements, take a stand. I think saying this today and tomorrow you are saying something else is not will not augur well for the effort we're making to try to improve our electoral system. You see, if you what we expect the president to do is point out in clear terms, this area I'm not comfortable with it. Please, can you do something about this? Then return the bill to me, to continue to tell us that some components of this thing is not good for Nigeria. Those are stories. We need action. Time is running out. Now, if there is anything that must be done to the existing, to the bill, so that they'll clean it up to meet the expectation of the president, why not do it? But to continue to tell us some aspect is not good for Nigeria, that is just, it amounts to waste of time.
Okay. You know, from what we are seeing now, it seems there is a form of communication gap, you know,
That's right.
between the government and the people. What really is the problem?
No, the problem simply is the inability of Buhari-led government to communicate, to link up with Nigeria and their expectation. Of course, there's need to improve the electoral system, and that is what people have been clamoring. Now, there's issue of electronic transmission of results. If you are dealing with that, we have heard the new revelation is that about 300 and something local government cannot, they don't have internet. While experts are saying satellite facilities can actually capture those places. INEC told us before that they can cover even the remotest of our local governments. Now something else is coming out again that 300 and something local governments has no internet facilities and all that. Experts are saying no, satellite facilities can actually capture those places. See, who are we? Why are we doing this to ourselves? It's just some, narrow interest, trying to maintain status quo so that for political benefits, and it is sad.
All right. Now, let's move away from that story. There are quite a number of stories this morning to look at. One of them, the issue of Niger Delta and the oil debate. We saw that story on Daily Trust, and it's also on the Punch newspaper, I believe. I mean, are we really debating this? Where where the oil belongs to, I mean, and all that?
You know, I want to start with papers must do their things. Media houses will always do their things. If you, the same story on Guardian, for instance, Guardian reported a different, as in the headline now.
Yeah.
So, and it shows the editorial focus of most media houses. But let's talk about the reply of Chief Obasanjo. He's a Nigerian, a foremost Nigerian that has given a lot to Nigeria. I think he's not far from the truth. Whatever resources is found, depending on what the system, the formula we have adopted for ourselves. Now, the formula we adopt here is we are using federation, okay? And now, but because of our peculiar circumstance, we have said that there are certain resources that can be explored by the region. Or we don't have region, we have states. States can explore. But there are some that federal government can actually. So as it is now, the enabling laws we have empowers the federal government to take these resources on our behalf, then share to ensure that all parts of with special consideration for some for states. That is where we have a derivation, 13% derivation we have now. So this is unnecessary. But I think it further reinforces the fact that it's failure of governance. See, some of these statements, like Chief Edwin Clark, is always, I mean, what most people from Niger Delta region are always banking on has to do with failure of leadership. If you give 13% to the region or to a state in the region and it is used judiciously, plus what the federal government is also doing in that place, we discover that it will narrow the gap of people's misgiving. Even if resources from there is being shared across the country, it will still, the misgivings of people will not be that pronounced, because they are seeing physical development.
So my concern is why, you know, with all the derivation formulas and all of that, why the focus of the conversation remains, you know, on the central government talking about federal government, I'm not seeing enough pressure on state governors, as to doing what they need to do with the resources available to them. Talking about, say, for instance, the 13% derivation.
Yes.
The conversation is not about, okay, Mr. Governor, the South governors, where is the 13% derivation and where have we channeled it?
Let me start with, I think government needs to demonstrate political will. Okay? What is good for one is also good for the other. If a petroleum from the Niger Delta region is being exploited for the benefit of the whole of the country, all the states, a sharing of a national cake. Now there's gold in Zamfara, for instance, and it is clear to the people of Niger Delta that in Zamfara there is gold there that people are boldly they are do. But the purchase, I mean, the hot chase they give to those that are trying to do something around illegal refineries and all that in the Niger Delta is not the same thing as what is being the way the federal government, because the suspicion is that federal government is giving leverage to these people because of where they come from in order to tamper with their resources. Take effective control of the gold they have there, then take our own oil, put them together so that the benefits of gold in Zamfara will also reach the person in the states in the Niger Delta. By that, if you are transparent in the way you handle all this, the disquiet will die down. But when you discover that all these let me call them criminals because it's illegal to set up a refinery, you are not buying, you have to steal oil to refine and all that. So the same measure you're treating them.
But how do we really determine, the measure or the approach of government in terms of, firmness in dealing, with
reports everywhere. We have not seen illegal miners, gold miners in Zamfara. There was this time we heard that the state government is even trying to sell gold. And that instead causing some misgivings from this other side. See, the simple point is federal government should up its game. See, if you're doing anything, let the purity of your motive be clear to, and it will just kill every agitation. Okay. But yes, if resources is from, in this case now, for instance, gold, because it's always reference point for the people that are arguing in Niger Delta, that why are these people allowed to mine? They are not being arrested. The way the military goes to the creeks of the Niger Delta to fish out these oil bunkers and all that. They should apply the same measure to those that are plundering resources in Zamfara. And you see that agitation will just die down. Then back to Edwin Clark and Chief Obasanjo, they know themselves. And from antecedent, we know where they stand. Sir Edwin Clark is a politician. He's an elder statesman and also a politician. And most of the statements, even if most times I've never heard him, come down hard on governors of his region. Look, from so time to so time, this is what you have received. It is expected that his argument is not wrong. His argument is not wrong. If we are operating through federalism, his argument is not wrong. Like in US and the rest, states can take control of their resources, then do royalty to the central government. But because of our peculiar circumstance, we have adopted another kind of federalism. We are not there yet.
Which is also an arguable system and highly debatable. The issues of Nigeria's federalism.
This is sick because it kills creativity. Yes, our federal system kills creativity. It permits, sometimes ago, former Deputy Senate President, Chief Ike Koremadu told us, describe it as feeding bottle federalism. Go to your state, wait for 30 days, come to Abuja, collect resources, and go back. It kills creativity. Governors no longer think out of the box, see what they can do to generate resources within their state. Meanwhile, they are sitting on resources.
Okay. Now, you know, for quite a long time, the Niger Delta has been clamoring, you know, for resource control. In the case of the Niger Delta, because this seems to be like a special case, what strategy really does the government need to employ in their case?
It's as simple as if the current 13% derivation, if it is judiciously utilized, I think it will douse the agitation. But it is as if when you give, if the current system we have is give money to this person, there is no, I think federal government will engage more with governors of the region, because the more disconnect, the more agitation in the Niger Delta, not even from the leaders, but from the downtrodden. As it is now, they believe they have been cheated. But if government decide that, look, of this 13% derivation, federal government is going to set aside another 5% for direct intervention. For direct intervention, I think it will go a long way.
Which is, I thought that's why we had the PIA, the provision in the PIA that says the host communities, you know, are entitled
by
to,
the time,
you know, some percentage.
Beautiful. Some of the provisions of the new PIA, beautiful, but you know the problem here. The gap is implementation. When Chief Obasanjo came in 1999, one of his priority was how to assuage the feelings of the Niger Delta people, and he accelerated the 13% derivation to be passed by the National Assembly, which he did. And it was expected that, the expectation was that with that 13% derivation, of course, they should move gradually from that level of poverty and all that to, but over time, we discovered that 13% derivation has not really worked in most of these Niger Delta states, because politicians are just corruption.
And now one would say that, well, perhaps, you know, we're going to see a change. You know, with the PIA, we have the NDDC, you know, in place, Niger Delta Development Commission, and also this 13% derivation formula. So for all of this, there's some amount that go to the Niger Delta.
That's right.
You know, so at least we should begin to see some change, and then maybe some pressure also on
local leaders,
you know, at that level, you know, to ensure that all that is allocated to that region, you know, through all of these systems and provisions in place, you know, is, you know, trickling down to the ordinary people there.
You see
in the
the
region.
NDDC, as at the forensic audit that was, I think over 2,000 projects scattered across the 9 states of the Niger Delta. Abandoned projects everywhere, projects that are not necessary. So that too is another conduit pipe. If direct intervention, that is direct intervention from federal governments in the Niger Delta, but it has been turned into conduit pipe. So see, the whole thing boils down to political will. Leadership is about political will to do the right thing. Now, if you appoint the head, the drama at the National Assembly off mic, it's that is our country for you.
In fact, even among the host communities, there was this, you know, drama during the, you know, the public hearing of the bill, the PIA bill.
Who gets what? There's always issue around there. But the project, if you're initiating a project, it should be targeted at at solving problem in Niger Delta. And then if you initiate project, target to time. in the next 1 year we are delivering this project, but there are projects that started in 2005, they are still uncompleted, according to the recent project audit reports in the Niger Delta. And you see that names are just coming up, people that should stand for their region and say, look, our people have suffered enough, let us make this thing work. Even if the governors, minus the governor, what is coming from the Niger Delta development should be able to impact lives. Build clinics for these people, for crying out loud. They are not asking for too much. They have schools to send their children to. They have, if they are sick, they have hospitals to go to. And then you are already, maybe if they want to transport anything to nearest market, they are able to transport their farm produce to nearest market. Then by that you start beating down poverty. But because of how irresponsible political elites has become, so poverty continues to aggravate, and everybody is looking for how to have a pinch of the pie. Well, of course. So they take to other means to get it.
Really okay, let's take a look at other stories. On the Guardian newspaper, the lead story there talks about COVID-19, and the UN is warning the world, saying prepare for another pandemic. COVID-19 won't be the last. Now, in the case of Nigeria, when the COVID-19 broke out, many will say we were not prepared. So has this taught us a lesson so far?
We have not learned anything. Sorry to disappoint. We have not learned anything. First, I want to start with an appeal to World Health Organization. We are already traumatized. The way they the way they issue some of these warnings is as if you just jump into the well and leave this world and for.
Yeah, but if you say we've not learned anything, some would say, look, we have more number of isolation centers now than we ever did. I mean, recall that at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, there weren't even any isolation centers.
Go to those centers and see for yourself what they call isolation centers. Most of these places they call isolation centers just I saw. See, the thing is this: we're talking about Omicron now, COVID-19 and all that. The Lassa that is our backyard here. Lassa is the name of a place in Borno State. And it has been there since the 70s. Intermittently, it comes, it goes, and our local laboratories cannot get to work. Our scientists should get to work and be able to, they should be given money to go into, we have to wait. You saw the destruction of COVID vaccine, the expired ones that,
yes.
I was at a forum when somebody appealed to all these donor countries that please don't give us expired vaccine. The one that is remaining 2 months to expire, you ship them to us. So it's an indictment. See, the more you continue to depend on others for what you need, that is the kind of frustration you suffer. We have to carry cameras and all that to go and show that we are destroying COVID vaccine because they are expired. When were they donated? Because at the last minute when it's about expiring, they were moved to us in form of donation, and we thank them, brought camera, celebrate. See, we need to invest more in most of these scientific discoveries, if you go out there, most of them are Africans, and as a matter of fact, most of them are Nigerians, because they are very brilliant. It's just that back home, there seems to be some this thing back here that kills initiative. Why is it that if a Nigerian go out, he is celebrated, he start doing well
successfully
back here?
Maybe we do not appreciate our own.
Apart from the level of investment, maybe there is we don't pump enough money into research. If not, I tell you, COVID is something we can handle. Lassa fever is what we can, but it is sad that 92 people will still die of something that started in about in the 70s. Up till now, we've not been able to overcome it. So it's a failure of even if you budget enough money for research purposes, will it get to the end users? It's another question.
Okay, now away from COVID, it seems like we are going to see yet another outbreak, even though this has come and gone for years. I'm talking about bird flu.
Yeah.
And the UN is also saying we should prepare for bird flu in 2022 because it's going to be quite another pandemic that is going to come through. Are we preparing? Are we having anything on ground, to prepare?
How well are we handling this? That we're thinking of the one that is yet to come. See, the first thing is that we need leadership. When leadership demonstrates will, it will be so clear. And the people will line, a lot depends on leadership. When the leadership is committed to changing narrative, the people will just fall in line. Now, this is a challenge. We've not been able, I think by now, I thought federal government will just, for all these big loans, maybe one of them will just take loans so that we know that this is taken for something that has to do with the people directly. For instance, like what do you call this research institute in Vaughan. You pump money there, if you like, collect loan. Yes. And we know that, yes, this loan is taken for us to empower ourselves against subsequent outbreaks. Well, so without our research institutions being equipped, we have Nigerians out there that you saw a story of the thousands of nurses that have to flee Nigeria because of our best hands are going out because of what the way things are back here.
Well, another issue that, one may want to think about. Now, say, for instance, the WHO is raising concern that they may not be able to meet, 40% target of the vaccination they have set out to achieve globally. So there's this apathy, of course, of people taking the jabs because of the controversies and the conspiracies. Yeah. What's the guarantee that if we do not take the ones imported from abroad, what's the guarantee that we will take the one that we produce by ourselves, looking at the attitude of Nigerians about, patronizing locally produced, drugs and any other thing Nigerian.
Let's produce it first. See, when Nigerians are interesting people, when they see that this was produced in Nigeria, the pride alone.
Do we really have that pride? Because
no,
I've seen that with other products. The way Nigerians behave towards anything Nigerian. There's this negativity, so much negativity around.
See, those concerned are not doing enough to change the narrative. They are not doing enough. I think there was this time that somebody brought shoes that was made in Aba, and belt, and also bought the one that was made in one country. I don't want to mention the name. That is reputed for leather works and all that. By the time you compare the two and say, you choose between these two. There's a trade fair they used to hold here, organized by Senator Abarebe, made in Abafe. If you get there, you will know that we are not just, and people are beginning to be aware that, look, there is a lot in here, but medically, Nigerians are even back here, our research institutions, it's not as if they are not doing it's just that the funds they need, they are competent people. If they produce vaccine, and maybe government arms that are responsible for enlightening citizens, by the time you show me 20 people who took the vaccine about 3 months ago, they are still bouncing well, they are here. And this thing is produced in Nigeria, so the likelihood of injecting some things to do this, or maybe theories and all that, will reduce. But as it has to do with this COVID and all that, if vaccine is produced locally, and by the time we intensify our sensitization, we'll start getting it right. And the pride I was talking about, for in Nigeria to know that this Nigeria, for once, were able to do the right things by putting heads together to come up with a vaccine for a particular outbreak. It tells on to the international community. It shows that we are beginning to find our bearing.
Okay. Now, talking about that, one of the African countries came up with its, I forgot the... Madagascar.
Yeah.
The Madagascar, solution, to COVID-19. We saw how that went. We saw the attitude of even, Western countries and
yes.
European countries towards that, But again, this is something that some of their experts there, they believe that it worked for them, But the negativity that we are talking about, So that's something to fight, don't you think?
In multilateral institutions set up to standardize some of these, I'm sorry, see, they are there for so many purposes. Part of it is to kill some initiative. If though is a herbal-based solution, so but then if these people say this is working, why not give it a try? World Health Organization descended on them and start saying something, lobby African leaders to distance themselves from that initiative. So you see,
the share that was given to Nigeria, I don't even know what happened to it.
We use it. See, they collected, I think government just collected it to maintain good relationship. But I don't think we were disposed to using it. See, the point is this: they use subtle pressure. I agree with your concern that if we come up with a vaccine, local vaccine, having to cross their hurdle of all these multilateral institutions who will shout down and say, bring it, let us, we are going to put it under all those. The medicines we produce locally here is, are we passing through World Health Organization to be able to produce them? They are produced in Lagos and all that and sold everywhere. And it's working. But if it comes to vaccine, because vaccine is long-lasting, it's more, it will up our respect in the international community and all that. It will send message to the fact that we are beginning to up our game. That won't go through. But the medicine we produce here locally by ourselves, our scientists will research and come up with maybe cough syrup or malaria something, and they're working very effectively. But if it comes to vaccine, the one that will impact on the country's credibility and all that, you will see their reaction. So I agree with your concern.
Hope that we see that.
Yes. So quickly,
turn up.
Quickly before we round up, we round up shortly. I want us to get perspectives on this story. Beg your pardon, about the ex-president of. Yahya Jammeh, that's Gambia, the ex-Gambian president, is found guilty of murder of 9 Nigerians. So what is expected of Nigeria, as regards this revelation?
See, the unfortunate legacy of Yahya Jammeh is just, we allowed him go that time because Nigeria has spearheaded chasing him out. Yes, through ECOWAS. The president was determined. That is, they know Nigeria for that. But with this revelation, I think Yahya Jammeh should be wherever he is. I think he's in one of the neighboring countries, Guinea also. No, he's in the neighboring country. When he left immediately, it was Saudi Arabia. Then from there, he came back to, I think it's Equatorial Guinea. It's a neighboring country. The recent election, he was interfering from that country. making broadcast.
You know,
Making broadcast. The 9 he will pay.
Exactly.
He's going to pay for the life of the 9 Nigerians he killed. But let me say this. If you want to advocate for the right of Nigerians that were killed outside, so do it clean.
Let's start from
Exactly.
here.
Let's start from here.
You know, with this revelation, many will say if it were to be another country, we would have been seeing, you know, those kind of moves by now. But we've not seen anything, you know, happen. And some will say, well, this might be left to go down the drain as well.
It will always, just like anybody can just be brought down here and we're not doing much about it. But for Jammeh, for the purpose of our standing in the sub-region, West African sub-region, of course, Jammeh has already had 1 or 2 issues before that we'll not mention here. That was why he was pushed out. He did us, and we showed him that, yes, there's a giant country within, despite our challenges. So he was pushed out. This revelation now, he won't go unpunished. Okay.
Well, let's just say that this is a first step to, because I'm sure that this is an outcome from a committee,
Truth and Reconciliation Commission,
that was set up, you know, to investigate his reign, you know, at the time, and the violations and abuse of human rights at the time. So let's just say this is the first step. We are watching to see perhaps, you know, the matter sent to the ICC, which I believe is already been before the ICC. We'll continue to follow.
I want to use this opportunity to call on ECOWAS to set up an ad hoc court to try. I think that will get that faster than waiting for ICC. For crying out loud, must we wait for ICC to come and somebody who committed heinous crime within our borders? We should be able to handle that. I think it's only when we are not able to handle it that we should refer it to ECOWAS.
But in any case, we should be able to handle it. I mean,
we should be able to handle it. ECOWAS should be able. There's ECOWAS court. He should be brought to ECOWAS. He should be arrested from wherever he is, then bring to ECOWAS court, because he's a member. His country is a member of ECOWAS, and the subsequent court, the ECOWAS Court of Justice, that is resident in Nigeria. They will bring him here for trial, and that will now begin to, assuage the feeling, the anger of the people that 9 Nigerians were killed under Jammeh.
Terrible.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspectives with us on Daybreak this morning. We look forward to having you again.
Thank you.